Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. This is the second Dhamma discourse on a series entitled Bodhipakkhiya Dhamma, the requisites of enlightenment. Last week we discussed about, in the first talk, we discussed about the definition of the term Bodhi or enlightenment. What exactly is meant by enlightenment? Now, the Buddha is the supremely enlightened one, and there are other different grades of enlightened ones, like the Arahat, the disciple Buddha, then the Pacceka Buddha, and so on. So now, basically the meaning of the word as as it is very important for every seeker of enlightenment to know. So the definition, I mentioned two words, two concepts really. One is the concept of emancipation. Now you all know that in 1863 the American blacks were emancipated, they were given freedom and they enjoyed independence. There are in stages, of course, and so many things happened, their lives changed, their status changed, so much so that today a black man is the President of the United States. Freedom, emancipation has brought them this ability, this capacity and eminence. The other idea was, which I mentioned last time, was the idea of being awake, to wake up into the light of truth. Most people live like a sleeping person, not aware of reality at all, not aware of the meaning of life itself. Why we live, why we are doing something, or we say something, or we think something. Hardly people know about that, hardly they are aware of it. They are just slaves. They are slaves of doing things in a mechanical way. They keep on doing things without knowing why they are doing it, and what are the motivations, and what are the consequences of such actions, and so on. So now, to become awake means to be in the world of reality, so that you are no longer in a state of dependence, where it's like, to be in a prison. A prisoner is in a state of dependence all the time. He has no freedom whatsoever unless he is set free. So now these are the two basic concepts, and we will dilate on this on various occasions. But now this much is enough. Today the subject would be just a simile, and just to illustrate how the factors of enlightenment, the requisites of enlightenment, Bodhipakkhiya Dhamma, that means those factors which lead one to emancipation. There are 37 such factors that lead. When you cultivate them, develop them, and bring them to perfection, then they lead one to enlightenment. So now these factors, today in this simile, bit by bit it will be made clear, and as an illustrative instruction, you will see that it goes in much better. Now, the simile is that of a king. Long ago, once upon a time there was a king, a Buddhist king in India, very devout, and this was during the period 1000 years from Buddha's time. That period we had millions of arhats, literally. So this king, somewhere in the central part of India, he was the ruler of a kind of a state, and that state was very beautiful. There it was dotted with so many hillocks and jungles, and a very, very prosperous state. And the king was known to be very virtuous and very kind, and so on. So now, the arhats, all enlightened disciples of the Buddha, 8 months in a year, they spent just going from place to place, preaching the Dhamma, in the same way that Buddha himself did. Buddha lived 4 months during the rainy seasons in one place. And during the 8 months, he just went about charika, you see, preaching tour, from place to place, village to village, and town to town, and so on. So these arhats were doing the same thing as usual. And many of these arhats, you see, passing through this particular state, they found out a place you see, which was very, very beautiful. There were 2 rivers on 2 sides of you see, a range of hills. And the hill was right in the middle of a thick forest. Now, all around you have this forest of tall, huge trees of segun and sala and all these very famous Indian teaks. So, and then the Rocky Mountain had so many caves. It was all dotted with caves all over, on all sides. So these arhats would go and occupy one of these caves and spend some time, you see, resting on their tour and so on. And then if they are not on tour and they wanted to spend 4 months rainy retreat, they just settled down in one of these caves and went out, you see, outside the forest area. There were villages all around. They would go and just go for alms round and come back and stay in the cave and meditating and spreading thoughts of universal love and universal compassion for the benefit, for the happiness and well-being of all around where they lived, throughout India, throughout Asia, throughout the world. They lived only wishing the happiness and projecting their powerful spiritual thoughts that people may live in peace, that there may be no war, no conflict, no fight, that there will be no natural calamity like you see, famine and so drought and so on. So the people, the villagers all around were very, very respectful, and they were all very prosperous. From the time the arhats began to come into their villages, they became extremely prosperous because their crops always came. They never had any trouble. They had rains aplenty. And you see, they had very prospering agricultural operations everywhere, all around. And so the news spread everywhere. The king came to know. So he said, I want to go and visit these arhats during this rainy season, those who want to stay here in this kingdom. So he asked some of his ministers, and then they went in a ratha. It was hardly about 50 to 60 miles from the capital. So they, just outside the jungle area, somewhere in a opening, very nice clean area around the river bank, a very nice green areas there. He had a camp built, and then he stayed there and he sent his men, his ministers and so on, because the jungle had wild animals. And but they never hurt any of the arhats. They loved these arhats, in fact. So anyway, these men, they had, they were intrepid people, courageous men. So they went to the cave and requested the head of the Sangha there, Venerable Sir, we want to have your darshan tomorrow morning. We want to offer some yagu, the morning kanji, and would the Venerable ones accept it and so on. So they agreed. So next morning they came and they offered them this yagu kanji with some eatables and some sweet items and so on. After that, they gave a discourse to the king and all the others. The king requested them to stay for 3 months, rains retreat, and he would like to offer dana, etc. He will make arrangements. So he will build a dhanasala, that is a hall, a dining hall, where the arhats could come and sit down, and the villagers from all around could come, cook and then offer, or anybody who wants to do that. And king himself undertook to do that for the first week. Sorry. And then also he built a Dhammasala, Dhammadesana Sala, a preaching hall, which was which had a facility for a little shrine. They could sit down for meditation and all that sort of thing. A complete sort of spiritual camp. So the Arhats accepted, and the king made all arrangements. He brought his queen, his family people, and the others also. So the camp grew into a big village, like it's a big village of camps. And huge quantities of food stuff and all kinds of things were brought. So the first week it was the responsibility of the king to offer dana. Early morning 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock, around that time, the one principal meal. Morning one was a liquid kanji with some tidbits, that's all. And so, on the full moon day, Ashalhi Purnima, on the full moon day of July, that is this month, it will be on the 7th, and we will have a very nice function here as usual. So, these men all ready with their food. Early in the morning, 4 o'clock, they started preparing, and exactly by 6 o'clock, in one line, all those arhats emerged from the forest and came towards the camp. Their feet were washed by the king and all others there. They were all wearing white dress, and they washed their feet, made them sit, and offered them the kanji and all that. Then they heard a small discourse, and they took the Atthasila, the 8 silas, the 8 precepts, and so on, and then the arhats left. When they got up, to leave, the king requested them to stay on, go to the Dhanasala, the Dhammadesana hall, and he had made every arrangement there if they had to go out or to answer calls of nature, etc. Everything was made, prepared for them, and there was a shrine, there was a meditation hall and all that. So, they went and sat down. Then the king and others also had their breakfast very quickly. And then they went and sat down. So, in between this morning breakfast and the noon meal, the arhats also agreed to give discourses. So on this first day, they assigned the 4 topics to 4 arhats, all expert yogis, great meditators, and they, one by one, gave discourses, each one on one aspect of, mindfulness. So on the first, there are 4 foundations of mindfulness, and these 4 arhats, they dilated on all these 4, the foundations of, that means methods of the cultivating mindfulness. So on the first, the arhat who dealt the first one, he, in a very simple way, he said, well, devotees, how to convert every action into a spiritual action. That is the subject of this Dhamma talk. Now, be mindful, be attentive and heedful. Do not let your mind go here and there and all that. Keep the mind calm and hear intently. And they did this, everyone. So he dilated on what is called Kayanupassana, contemplation on every bodily action, every bodily activity or function. Now, for instance, breathing is one of the bodily functions. It is involuntary, you can't tell, you say, Vipakaja Rupa. It's a Rupa, you see, bodily aspect of our life, you see, born of our past karmas. So that we are breathing from the time we are born, and we will till we die. We will be breathing till we die. So this happens in a just automatic way. It goes on and on and on, and whether it is day or night, and whatever it is, it goes on. So now this very involuntary process on which we hardly have any control, it happens. If you try to forcibly do something on it, then you end up being in a mental hospital, trying to mess up with your breathing process. I myself have seen in this Bangalore mental hospital people in the name of pranayama doing all kinds of artificial way of trying to control the breath and develop some psychic abilities, and they have landed themselves in the mental hospital. And I can tell you very frankly and truthfully, one day I found a doctor in one of the wards. And he was very cheerful when I say, how have you succeeded in landing here? He said, Swamiji, I was inquisitive and I wanted to, learn how to, some power, he said. I said, the best power is having the ability to be mindful from time to time. No power is greater than that. However, that's a different story. So, these arhats dealt with this, every aspect of bodily movement, every aspect of bodily function or bodily activity. Not only of the living body, but also of the dead body. When you are dead, how can this dead body also be, a very suitable tool for the cultivation of the mind, development of spiritual potential within ourselves. So, where in great detail and extremely clearly, this great Arhat dilated. He explained everything and made these people do that. He made every one of them practice by every method he taught. Then he said, look here, you are walking all the time. Why not turn that walking itself into a spiritual act? Now you go to the bathroom, you have to go, answer the call of nature. Why not think all kinds of nonsense instead of that? Turn that action into a spiritual action. Now you are eating. Without eating you can't live. But you are eating in a way that contributes only to defile your mind, because you eat, gobble up with greed and rapacity. Rapacity, you just live to eat. So now that very eating can be converted into a meditative action, and you can benefit immensely indeed by doing so. So like that he taught them the method. Today I won't go into the details, I will do that at a later stage of the series. So he dilated on Kayanupasana, the foundation of mindfulness by having control over all actions, by converting every bodily action into a spiritual action, by having control over the actions. Or in this way, develop control over your action, your karma. Then the next Arhat came. It was his time. He took up another theme. This is not the bodily action, but feelings. So he said, look here, from the time we are born till we die, we keep on feeling every second of our existence. Make no mistake about it. Just as there are three basic bodily actions, kayena vacha manasa, bodily activities, action, then speech, verbal action and mental action. Three types of karmas. So there are three types of feelings, vedana, and we are feeling them all the time. A pleasant feeling and not pleasant feeling or painful feeling, or a neutral feeling, neither pleasant nor non-pleasant. So these feelings are there with everything that we do. When we eat, we feel, and that influences the way we eat. When we talk, we feel, and that influences how we talk. When we read, we feel, and that influences how we react to what we are reading. Or we are just lying down in the bed to go to sleep, and we keep on feeling things. And if the feelings are not under control, not understood,